Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the party. It's Lindsey and Krista. We're so happy you're here. We've been doing this for 6 years. I think we just passed our 6 year
Oh, yes.
Annie.
Is that September 16th?
It is.
Yes, honey. Oh my
Life just
God.
passes you by.
Life happens quick. Honestly, that's how I felt at your wedding. I was like, life happens fast.
Dude, she was just like sleeping with 18
Unwell.
people in a week and now she's
I
married.
know, honestly. I was like, she was
Just kidding.
lost and now she's found. I just was like, there's very few moments in your life that are as important. And you're just like, oh my
So
God.
true.
And weddings happen, it's like at the first third of your life. Say if you live to 90, God willing, it's like you're 30 or whatever
Uh huh.
around. And
Isn't
then you're like, it's a third of your life. And then you're like, wow, third of your life marker. And this
it
is, and
wild?
then after that, children, such a beautiful marker. But the markers are so compact to the first years of your life,
Yes.
which is so unfortunate. But you're like, oh man, this is a big one,
It's a big one.
big one.
Just wanting to like retain that, and same with like what we created. It's like you want to retain and also remember some of
Mhm.
the um initial like spark energy that either created it,
Mhm.
or like in the wedding sense, like on the wedding day, like what
Mhm.
was that, like can we kind of put that in a little bottle and dip into it?
In the interview with Rupi, we were talking about, her first book, Milk and Honey, how it just came out and just was huge. And so you have this thing, and this happens with a lot of artists. Elizabeth Gilbert also talks about it. But it's like there's this energy of doing it for you and doing it because no one's watching and doing it from the pure soul level. And then you get the fame and the notoriety, and then you try and chase that thing. And because the ego kind of steps in, and this was my interpretation of it, not hers, it's like the ego steps in, and then your ego is trying to make that your identity and chase that thing again and again. And it just brings you further away. It can be super hard. I mean, she's done such an incredible job of staying true and staying in this like beautiful energy of soul. And so has Young Pueblo,
Hmm.
who we're interviewing today on the show. But it's such an interesting journey for the artist.
Yeah, and he had a lot of success with his first book, and now
Yeah.
his second book, Lighter, is out, and he was talking a little bit about that too with, there's pressures from
Mhm.
like the publisher where, there's a certain amount of investment that goes into it and you really want to make the investment worthwhile. But I do feel like he has a really healthy, balanced perspective on it all, from what I perceive. He has his partner and wife, Sarah, who I feel like, you know, brings him back when maybe some of those expectations and pressures can get the best of them, but him. But um, yeah, it's something as simple and beautiful and powerful as writing, when put into the spotlight or under a microscope. I can imagine it can be very distorting, and for Diego Perez, who is young Pueblo, um, he literally just wakes up and first thing he does is write. And he manages his Instagram. He posts on his Instagram every day. And that's, something he writes is like pure and potent and fresh every single day. And um, I think he retains that ability to do it himself because it's like there's no in between to kind of distort it, if that makes sense. And I think retaining that, and even though it's work and he's still managing this, but I think it's an important part of his process to keep it simple, to keep it just
Mhm.
like his own. Um, we have to think about that. Obviously, like
Mhm.
as you get bigger, maybe the team grows, maybe the
Yeah.
expectations grow, and there can just be things that are placed in between you and the art.
Mhm.
And so I think it's like the
Yeah.
responsibility of the artist to maintain that
Mhm.
connection to it in the most authentic, way possible.
Yeah, Georgia O'Keeffe lived like on a farm, middle of nowhere, would go on a 2-hour walk in the morning, 2-hour walk in the evening,
Hmm.
and just create art all day,
Sounds good.
not talk to anybody, just like hang, and stay in that like energy. Yeah, the true artists really are able to really do that and
Hmm.
allow that to be the thing. Diego was on the podcast 5 years ago.
So crazy, right? We
Yeah,
were talking about that.
we were just starting. We were just
We were
starting. I remember where
laughing.
we were. I remember everything. I remember that studio we had rented, and so it's really beautiful to see the growth and journey, but
He said to me, he goes, "You know, we've really grown together." I was like, "Dude."
you're like,
I'm like, "I don't have 2.3 mil."
yeah, literally.
I'm
Some more
like,
than
"But
others.
I appreciate it."
Yeah,
I was like,
literally.
"I will agree. We've grown together." But
Yeah.
he was very, I mean, I laugh, but very sincere because he loves our work, and obviously we're just in love with him. He's just so special. Um, but he was reflecting on, wow, 5 years ago, can you believe that, and where we were, and just like how much has happened and how much we've both grown. I was like,
Sweetie. So Lindsay and I both chose a Young Pueblo writing piece that we wanted to share just because we thought we would just wet your whistle. Ah, I love this. You cannot build a deep connection with someone who is disconnected from themselves. And I feel like I see this happen within my own life and within our community, where when you are conscious, when you are online, when you are a deep feeler, and when you are someone that has this deep, expansive heart, and then you have the expectation for others to have that too.
mhm,
Um, in Women Who Run with the Wolves, she often talks about that. Do not expect this deep level of intimacy with those, the small hearted and the small minded. And that's not to judge or that's not to shame or condone, but we can't have this expectation for the same level of love or ability to connect or ability to feel from other people. So if you know someone that feels disconnected from themselves or is struggling to connect with their life or a greater power, to expect them to connect deeply with you is not something that, is really possible because we must be connected with ourselves first. So I really loved that piece.
yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, he's been on like this like beautiful relationship kick. I
Yes.
mean, so his wife
Yes.
Sarah joined us here in New York. They came down from their beautiful little farm in Western Massachusetts. She was showing me the little baby foxes that have been born underneath her deck.
Say no more.
I mean, I was like, that's it.
Besties.
She's like, it was her Instagram, like all over her Instagram. I was like, this is content,
I'm like,
baby.
follow.
But she's a doll. I love this one. They asked her, how do you build harmony in a relationship? She answered, you both have to be serious about your healing and open to growth. When tension arises, you focus on understanding each other's perspective instead of trying to win. As your self awareness expands, it will make it easier to find a middle path that you both feel good about. Harmony blossoms when your primary intention is love, not control.
Mm,
Yeah.
it's such a good
So
one.
true.
Yeah,
So,
the
so true.
control thing. In conscious loving, I said this the other day, but Gay Hendricks talks about the fight for the victim position
Hmm.
in relationship. Nobody wins when you're both trying to be the biggest victim
Hmm.
and you're trying to be the one the most hurt. You're trying to be the one in the most pain. And that happens so much in so many relationships, with parent relationships, with family dynamics. Think about when you hear people talk about their families or talk about work or talk about friendships. It really is most people
Hmm.
fighting for confirmation of their victim position.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I've noticed in myself kind of the, and it's weird because you would never really think this, but like, I do like, there's this part of me that like fights to be right. And so in the
Yeah.
moment, I'll get like a little, I
Yeah.
think it's that, yeah, there's something about it. And so I'll have to catch myself in those moments,
Mhm.
especially with Sean, where like I'll be like, well, no, no, I didn't. Or like,
Mhm.
it's like this, but it's like, even when it's happening, I'm like, "It's not me." It's like this reactive
Mhm.
part of me. I'm like, oh, it's so interesting. Like, what is that? I'm still kind of playing with her. I'm like, what
Mhm.
do you have to say? Because it is just like, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be
Mhm.
bad.
Mhm.
I don't want to be,
Yeah, not being bad.
you know,
Mhm.
it's very, very fascinating.
Mhm.
But I just love his work. And especially his new book, Lighter. There is this, there's a self guidance that happens
Mhm.
with his work where it's like this gift of these beautiful words, right? And medicine in written form, but then the way it lands with each person is going to be very different. And um, yeah, I just think he has such a beautiful gift. So we talk about his, growth over the last few years in particular, especially within his marriage, in his relationship with his work. in his meditation practice. So I didn't know this, but he goes on 10-day silent meditation retreats, I think 3 or 4 times a year. And then he does one, I don't know if it's once a year, that's like 41 days. Like, I was like, are there any other days in the year?
100%. Literally. I'm like, when is talking happen?
So I might have gotten that wrong, but he's gone on longer retreats and it's
Wow.
just been a really powerful. He has a connection to a very particular retreat center up in Western Massachusetts. And um, yeah, I just really admire his dedication and commitment to his practice. I do believe there is a definite connection between that and the way in which he can channel his work.
Mhm. I'm excited for this one. If you felt really impacted by this conversation, if this resonated with you, share it with a friend. That's how we've grown. And it's
Mhm.
just such a kind thing. It's like when you get a meme, you feel connected to.
Totally.
You feel this connection to the person that sent it to you. So definitely send this to a friend. Make sure you're subscribed to Almost 30. You can go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and subscribe. And then listen to Morning Microdose. Morning Microdose is our new ad free podcast that comes out 5 days a week that has your daily dose of inspiration and insight from the best of the best conversations of Almost 30. So, Morning Microdose is our new podcast.
Yes. Thank you for listening, everyone. Enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the other side.
We'll see you soon.
Bye. I just got the sweetest DM. It was a compliment on my skin. And I take that in because it hasn't always been my story that my skin is something that I love and I think is beautiful. And so I've worked really hard and I've found products that I truly love and that work and keep not only the skin on my face, but the skin on my body just really healthy and smooth and glowing. And it's summer, baby. And I just wanted to share some of my favorite products to keep your skin healthy and glowing because you deserve it. And these products are from Osea. Osea skincare and body products help your skin just get ready for every summer look. I swear to you, it will nourish and soften and smooth your skin. And what I love about Osea is that their products are safe, responsibly sourced, vegan, cruelty-free, and powered by the sea. Oh, you're going to feel it. My favorite is the Undaria algae body oil. It's a cult favorite. It's gone viral many a times. It is just so delicious. It smells amazing. It's rich, never greasy. It's luxurious. And again, you're going to smell so good. It doesn't leave my skin feeling sticky. I hate when that happens. So I just sweep it on my legs and my arms. Y'all, when I go out, people are like, what? What? Oh, I love the compliments. So if you are looking for a new skincare and body care brand that is clean and vegan, cruelty-free, responsibly sourced, Osea is it. OseaMalibu.com. OSEA Malibu.com and get a special discount just for our listeners. It's 10% off your first order site-wide with promo code ALMOST30. Plus, Osea is amazing and they'll give you free samples with every order. And orders over $50 get free shipping. So don't wait. OseaMalibu.com, OSEA Malibu.com. Promo code is almost 30. You're going to get 10% off plus a bunch of free samples with your order. And you get free shipping on orders over $50. Enjoy. I had a really cool experience the other day. I was home alone. I had just received my shipment of Shrimu Not cheese, and I decided to create a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cheese board with different crackers and fruits. And I just had it as like my little midday snack while I was doing work. And I put it on like a gorgeous wooden cheese board. It was kind of spiritual, to be honest. I am so excited to introduce you to Shrimu. It is a plant-based artisanal not cheese collection. It is pure. When I say pure, the intention is pure. The ingredients are pure. And it is delicious on a whole other level. I didn't know not cheese, this is non-dairy, could be this delicious. And their mission is to create the best cheese in the world via an artisanal black label not cheese food offering that is just, it is rich. It is lavish. It nourishes you. And if you're a cheese lover, You're going to absolutely love this. The founder is Srimati. You might know her as Julie Pyatt. She has been on the podcast, an incredible force of love and intentionality and consciousness, and a wonderful teacher. And she is devoted to this offering. And you really feel the sacred intention when you eat this cheese. I swear to you, if it sounds crazy, just get some and you'll feel it. Shrimu is a global mission of awakening. It is a frequency of a mother's love, full of unconditional love, acceptance, and celebration for all the unique life forms that make up a human family. Shrimu is universal. It is paleo, plant-rich, gluten-free, dairy-free, raw. And I know that everyone in your family is going to find a Shrimu flavor for them. So I wanted to tell you about my favorites. So I really, really love the Gold Alchemy. So, oh my goodness. This like brings back memories, flavors of childhood, ham and cheese sandwiches, you know what I mean? It is inspired by a smoked Gouda. And the smoky flavor is so beautiful. It has turmeric and black pepper. Y'all, you're going to love this. The base is organic cashews. It has organic coconut oil. It has Irish moss, organic turmeric. Yo, one of my favorites. Absolutely. I also really, really love the birdie. So this is inspired by a camembert infused with truffle. Yeah, I'm a truffle gal. This one was so delicious. I put it on some seed crackers. Oh, mwah, chef's kiss. So head to shrimu.com. I'm going to spell it out for you. SRIMU.com. Use the code almost30 for 20% off all single orders and 20% off the first 4 orders when they sign up for a subscription. Okay, that's you. If you sign up for a subscription, you'll get 20% off your first 4 orders. I say that's worth it, baby. They freeze beautifully. If you're going out of town or have extra Shrimu, you can freeze the wheels and then thaw them later, which is what I did. When you subscribe, you could choose different frequencies on your subscription. You can pause your subscription. It's really, really flexible. So again, shrimu.com, SRIMU.com. Use the code almost30 for 20% off all single orders and 20% off the first 4 orders when you sign up for a subscription. Have at it. Enjoy. We recently had on Shervin, the founder of Symbiotica. Y'all, this episode broke the internet on IG, on TikTok, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Y'all are freaking out, and for good reason. I am absolutely just so enthralled with this brand. They are so meticulous in their quality, their sourcing. They're developing these products for years. This is a health supplement company, if you don't know, and they are designing sophisticated organic formulations that are scientifically proven to increase vitality and longevity by filling nutritional gaps that result from our modern day diet. So we live in a time where our soils are depleted. There are toxins in more things than I'd like to really admit to myself. And they are sourcing the highest quality bioavailable ingredients and the most advanced delivery system. Most of their supplements are liposomal delivery, which I love. This is my preferred way to take supplements. I just wanted to shout out some of my favorite products that maybe you would like, but I highly recommend just perusing their website. I love their liposomal vitamin C. It's derived from non-GMO L-ascorbic acid, and to create the perfect synergy, they added bamboo silica, one of nature's most beautifying minerals required for collagen production, normal cell function, and strong connective tissue. So this is going to support healthy aging. It's going to boost your collagen production, and your immune system is going to be supported as well. I also love the liposomal vitamin D3 and K2 and CoQ10. So this comes in a bottle, but then I squirt it in my mouth. I do 12 pumps a day. It contains the highest quality plant-based materials essential for activating over 3,000 genes associated with longevity. D3 is critical for regulating the absorption of calcium and phosphorus, two minerals that play a key role in the strength and density of our teeth and skeletal system. And this formula may also help promote mental clarity and support normal blood clotting while increasing energy levels. So this is going to support your immune health, strong bones, supports cardiovascular health by reducing arterial plaque. So these are my top 2 supplements. I am also, last but not least, really obsessed with Shilajit. So this is a plant-based mineral resin that contains over 84 essential minerals and fulvic acid and offers numerous health benefits. It's a super antioxidant that improves memory and immunity, anti-inflammatory, and it's an energy booster. So this is great to replace your coffee in the morning, but you can create your own custom bundle subscription and get 15% off your purchase, okay? This is in addition to custom bundle discounts. So if you do a custom bundle subscription, you can get up to 45% off when you use code almost30. I wouldn't wait on this. Go to symbiotica.com. That's CYMBIOTIKA, symbiotica.com, and use the code almost30 at checkout. I was chatting with a family member a few years ago, and I thought I knew so much about this person. And they were sharing a story with me from earlier in their life, and I've never heard it before. And it was just such a moment that I'll never forget, where I was like, wow, this person that I thought I knew so well, which I think I do, but there are so many aspects of who this person is that I don't really know, and I would love to know more. How many other stories, that they have in their life don't I know? So I'm really, really excited to introduce you to something that we found. It's called Storyworth. So I actually got this for my family. Storyworth is an online service that helps you and your loved ones connect through sharing stories and memories, and it preserves them for years to come. So each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question of your choice from a big pool of possible options. And each unique prompt asks a question that you've never thought of, like, what is one of your fondest childhood memories? Which I just love that question, because it just takes that person back to that moment, really puts them in the energy of what they were feeling. And you can tell even in their storytelling and recounting of it, just how special it was. Or a question like, what's the best advice you've ever received? Because ultimately, it's probably pretty good advice for me too. I've really enjoyed reading through the answers to these questions. There's stories and memories I honestly have never heard before, and I've discovered new details about stories I thought I really knew. So it's just been filling in the blanks for me and just honestly deepening my relationship with those that I really, really love. After 1 year, Storyworth compiles all those questions and stories, including photos, into a beautiful keepsake book the whole family can share for generations. So I'm really excited for y'all to get this gift for your parents, your grandparents, those you love. Get to know your loved ones better and preserve those special moments forever with Storyworth. Right now, for a limited time, you can save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/almost30. That's STORYWORTH.com/almost30 to save $10 on your first purchase. One more time, storyworth.com/almost30. Okay, so we were just talking about your 7-year wedding anniversary.
That's right.
How does that feel? 7 years, I actually can't wrap my mind around yet.
Yeah.
I'm about to get married, but to me, 7 years is such a cycle.
Yeah.
How would you describe the last 7 years?
Well, first off, it felt like a bold move, because we were just so young when we got married. I mean, I was 27, she was 26. But we both knew that we were like locked in. We really just have so much love for each other. And things were pretty chaotic in the first half of our relationship when we first got together, because we got together really young.
Yeah, that's young. I'm trying to think of myself at that age. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. But even younger than that. So we got together when she was 18 and I was 19. So like fresh in college. And in some ways it feels like we raised each other, because we've been together a total of 15 years, which is absurd. But it's been fantastic because we've grown up together. Like the
Mhm.
first part of it was just, like I said, pretty chaotic because there was just no emotional maturity between the two of us. We just didn't know ourselves. And so we were like constantly projecting onto each other. Um, but our wedding sort of coincided with us both really finding like our spiritual paths and we started meditating about like 3 years before we got married, and that started bringing the beginning of harmony into our relationship.
Mm.
And there were still like so many ups and downs and so many like trials leading up to the actual wedding where we really had to like get the kinks out to, like, just like work out the more difficult aspects of our relationship that we were running away from. But yeah, being together for 7 years, it just feels phenomenal. And I feel like I won the lottery. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I'm so happy that this like critical part of my life is very like cemented, and
Yeah.
it feels so nourishing and beautiful. And I could not ask for a better partner.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The emotional maturity piece, which I loved, in your new book, I didn't know that that had a word or words when I was going through it, where I felt so misunderstood,
Yeah.
but I was also kind of most certainly misunderstanding other people
Yes. Yes.
and not taking responsibility for
Hmm.
that, and really taking responsibility for how I felt. Um, can we talk about emotional maturity and immaturity and kind of how that presents itself? Because if I were to say to someone, it seems like you're emotionally immature, I don't know if anyone would really want to
Yeah. Yeah.
take responsibility for that because I
Yeah.
feel like we all have a little bit of it kind of creeping around.
Totally. Totally. And I think there's a lot of different lenses that you could look at it through. The one that I like to see emotional maturity through is essentially understanding that it's your relationship with your emotions, right? It's how you deal when tough things come up inside of you, and how you either run away from that or you stay with it and you face it and you feel it. But you also feel it in a way where you're not just throwing more fire onto the tension that's already there and making it bigger and letting it control your actions. And then you're saying things that you later regret. It's more so feeling yourself when you're moving through the turbulence without throwing it on to other people. That's what I think of as
Mm.
emotional maturity.
Yeah, it's the projection piece is a little sneaky where, you're feeling these big feelings.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself when I feel big feelings, and for so long I didn't know how to hold them.
Mhm.
And so it's like they would just kind of bleed out
Yeah.
and really blend with other people's emotions, say with a partner or family or friends. And it was hard for me to distinguish like what was mine and what wasn't,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? How do you, within your relationship, speak to these emotions? Because I feel like for me, the communication piece has been such a huge practice
Yeah.
where I need to almost like pace myself so that my words can catch up to my emotions.
I think that probably the biggest thing that's helped us, especially recently over the past, I would say like 3 or 4 years, is almost, preventative communication, if that's
Ooh.
even like a term. It just popped into my head now, but it's
Mhm.
trying to be really consistent with letting each other know where we are in our own personal emotional barometer. So, like, when we wake up, we let each other know, like, I feel like I'm going through a storm today. Like, I do
Mm.
not feel good, or I feel fantastic. Let's, like, do all the things that we were planning on doing, but we will just let each other know, how we feel so that we both know. Because oftentimes we won't even check in with ourselves and we won't really know how we feel. And then next thing
Yes.
we find that sort of, that difficult emotional tumultuousness that's happening, it'll just start steamrolling into some narrative, trying to make it your partner's fault when actually they had nothing to do with it. You
Yeah.
just woke up that way. You don't even need to necessarily always know the cause, because sometimes the cause can be very murky. Like sometimes it may
Mm.
be related to something from a long time ago when you were a child. Other times you may have just woken up and not felt great. Um, but how you respond to it is like critical. But part of that
Yes.
response is really highly dependent on just letting your partner know. So you both set the stage when it's like, okay, if I know that my wife is not feeling that well, then that gives me an opportunity to show her love by stepping up.
And not take it personally.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a very important practice that I didn't realize we were doing as preventative measures, but
Yeah.
yeah, it reminds me something our therapist said to us was if it hasn't been, or I'm butchering this, but if it hasn't been said, then it's not true yet. Like if you haven't expressed it to your partner,
That's
you
so
can't
smart. Yeah.
assume that it's true
Mhm.
because I would kind of sit and like if he was in a mood, which he can be, my sweet Pisces, but I'm also a Gemini moon, so
Yeah.
we're two people. Um, if he was in a mood, I would just go through. I'm like, did I do something? Did I say something? What's happening?
Mhm.
But I have really stuck to what she said, and I'm like, if he doesn't say anything, then not that I'm not going to, communicate with him or kind of ask him how he's doing, but more so just take it on as something that I feel responsible for.
Yeah. I love that too because it feels like that era of like the 1990s and early 2000s where we would like expect our partners to read our minds. Like it's over.
Yo,
I can't
he
read your
says
mind.
to me, I'm
Yeah.
not a mind reader. And
Yeah.
I say, I wish you were
Yeah.
sometimes, but
I
it's
wish you
okay.
were, but we're not there.
We're not there
So
yet.
talk to me. Like
Yeah,
what's going
literally.
on?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the eras of us as humans having ESP across the board with one
Yeah.
another has not
It hasn't
arrived.
happened yet. So, but we can still talk. Let's
Yeah, we
find out
can
what's
still
going on inside
talk.
each of us.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Have you found that your relationship has inspired other people in your life?
Um,
Just
I
by
think
osmosis,
so.
not by like actual teaching, but
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think I've had some really close friends. Like I just married my one of my best friends, Sam, and his wife Jackie,
mm,
and I got to perform the ceremony for them. Um, and he's, so critical in my life because he's the one who put me on this meditation path. He's the one who did the silent 10-day meditation courses first. So I always feel like I owe him the world, because he like, I don't even know if he understands the magnitude of what he's done for me by showing me my path. But when we asked, like when he asked me to do the ceremony, he's always been very sort of genuine with me about how there are aspects of my life that he tries to emulate, and I know
mm.
the love that Sarah and I have for each other. He wants to carry a similar quality into his relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I ask that because I really I love the feeling of learning from friends and family
Yeah.
who are modeling something that I love and respect and really telling them and having it be an exchange where that's something we look for and honor rather than being like, oh my God, so, kind of the
Yeah.
more gossipy,
Yeah.
let's talk about the what's going wrong.
Yeah.
Like I really love leaning more into that. It just feels
I
good.
think that's why it's so important too to have friends who are not exactly like you.
Yes.
Because it's so easy to just like vibrations attract like vibrations, and you end up in the group where everyone just has like way too many commonalities.
Yes.
But like thinking about Sam, right? Like when I think about him, like he is a person of like immense courage. Like this dude has no problem stepping outside of his comfort zone. And it's like a quality of his that I'm constantly trying to emulate in myself because he just has it to like a very like highly developed degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, your meditation path, I know we've talked about it the first time we spoke, but I feel like perspectives of
Sure.
our
It's been
path are
years.
always
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
And our community is, whether they are regular meditators or
Hmm.
they're curious about meditation, would love to know how you met meditation.
Sure.
And I was talking to Sarah before this, and she was saying you guys did a 45-day
Yes.
recently. I would love to talk about that, but would love to
Yeah.
talk about just how you met meditation.
Sure. Yeah. So it was interesting. Meditation kind of came to us. It was the summer of 2012 for me when I did my first course. Um, but that happened a year after I hit my rock bottom. So like my rock bottom point was the summer of 2011. And that's when, one night I just did like way too many different drugs, felt like I was dying, literally felt like I was having a heart attack. I spoke to a doctor later and she was like, yeah, it sounds like you had a mild heart attack.
Wow.
So could have lost my life that night. But that night, I realized that what had gotten me to that point was that I had been lying to myself. I had been lying to myself about how like rough I was feeling inside, how much anxiety I was feeling, how much sadness. And I would try to run away from that by just like filling myself with pleasure by going to parties, by drinking, by doing different drugs, by constantly stimulating myself in some
Yes.
manner or another. But when I realized that what had gotten me to that point was lying to myself, I was like, maybe if I tell myself the truth, I can pull myself out of this mess.
Yeah.
So I spent like a whole year just really practicing, I guess, like my own version of radical honesty, where I'm just like really just being super truthful with what's happening inside of me to myself, not necessarily to other people, but just like that first step, just like what
Mhm.
is happening, and instead of immediately like trying to smoke or trying to call out, trying to just distract myself from some manner, I would just sit there. I wasn't even meditating. I would just sit there and just feel what I was feeling. And it had a lot of results. But in some ways, it feels like a year later, that kind of, I don't know, someone got me ready to do that first silent 10-day meditation course
Yeah.
because it took um, that sense of presence to like a whole nother level because you're just, it's totally silent. You're there for 10 days. You are not communicating with anyone else. You don't have your cell phone. You're not like emailing with you. You're totally disconnected from the outside world. And it's just you and yourself and
Mm.
your emotional history.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was incredibly, incredibly difficult. But to this day, it still is like my primary and really my only tool. Like that's the only thing that I use for my personal growth, and it has just provided tremendous results for me personally.
Wow.
Um,
Can you describe the power and the practice of the 10-day
Sure,
silent
yeah. So the
meditation?
10-day course, when you go in, the first 3 days you practice what's called anapana,
Mm.
and that's sort of a concentration practice that helps calm and concentrate the mind, where you're aware of the natural breath. And it's quite difficult. Like you are breathing all the time, but we're never really aware of the breath moving in and moving out.
Sure.
So when you start practicing that, it shows you how um, unfocused your mind is. Like it's, you may focus for like one breath and then already it's thinking about the future or it's thinking about the past. Um, and then after those 3 days, after the mind settles down a little bit, you start observing the body. You start observing the truth that's happening within the framework of the body, and that truth sort of immediately reveals itself as impermanence. Right, like everything's changing, fluctuating. Whether it's like a really intense pain, there are intensities in that pain. Whether
Yeah.
it's like some tingling or vibrating, there's some motion there. So you see the truth of change, and that truth of change is what allows a lot of that unbinding of that old conditioning in the
Mm.
mind and sort of creates that feeling of liberation. Yeah.
Yeah, the sitting with your emotional history is when you say it, I'm kind of like, whoa, what would come up?
Yeah.
What did it feel like, I suppose, sensationally? Like it feel like waves, or was it how did you kind of um are you supposed to process it in the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't want to give too much meaning to any particular feeling because a lot
Mhm.
of it is just like you're just understanding the law of impermanence primarily. But then at other times you do know that like there's just a lot of hard stuff that people have gone through, and I
Mhm.
remember for me particularly when I did that first course, the sensations were rather like rough. Like it felt really physically painful. And it wasn't just the pain of like sitting there for long hours and meditating. Like I would feel like just like thick pains like emerging from my back. It almost felt like steel
Wow.
beams like coming out of my back.
No
I remember thinking
way.
that specifically.
You're like, I
Uh,
hope this is
I
something that
know.
doesn't need to be
I know.
there.
I'm like, I hope I'm okay. But like
Keep
I was
going.
okay. It was just like
Yeah.
so much stuff from the past that had been
Wow.
just
Lodged.
accumulated
Yeah.
over time. That's what people don't quite realize, that
Mm.
every time that you react, whether it's like light or very dense reaction, it gets accumulated in the subconscious of the mind. And that like, you know, it stays there and it'll affect how you see the present and how you react when different situations occur.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the body's intelligence has been something that I've been working with related to my intuition because I
Yeah.
found that I will feel intense sensations in my body connected to um, moments of like high emotion or intense emotion. And sometimes it's mine, sometimes it's not.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like a message trying to come through. Um, but the body is just incredible. It's like this
Yeah.
little radar or like
It's like
like
a
a little
compass.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
little where there's information coming in.
Mhm.
What is your relationship with your body, like the evolution of your relationship with your body been like?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's been, an evolutionary arc of just acceptance,
Yeah.
right? Because there's this constant thing that especially I imagine that a lot of Westerners in particular have because we're constantly fed images of beauty. I'm sure that's a
Yeah.
problem all around the world.
Yep.
But just like accepting where I'm at and just
Mhm.
loving where I'm at
Yeah.
without being like, okay, I need to get here or I need to get there. And a lot of that has been built through the meditation practice and has helped me sort of hone my relationship with my intuition in particular. Because for me, I mean, intuition just works really different for different people. Like a few things that I've learned is that two things in particular. One, your intuition, if you're really going to follow it, it will ask you to step outside of your comfort zone. Like it's meant
Mhm.
for you to grow. And the second part is that it won't ask you to do anything that will hurt you.
Mm.
Like it may ask you to do things that are, challenge you. It may like scare you a little bit if it's like, you need to move to this new city or you need to like leave this job for this other one or things like that that feel daunting. But it's not going to ask you to do anything that will hurt you. Um, but to me, it feels like a very sort of like continuous calm signal that is very different from the cravings of the mind. Because the mind's like, I want ice cream, like I want to watch more of this TV show, or but it's you can tell that these are sort of the sounds that reactions
Mm.
make as opposed to the body just like continuously delivering this one particular message. Like I remember the moment when Sarah and I decided that we were kind of like over. We used to live in Boston before we lived in New York City for 7 years. Um, but I just kept feeling I was like, now's the time. Like it's time to go to New York City. I thought it was the time before, but it wasn't quite yet. Um, but this moment in particular felt different. And when I checked in with her, she felt like, yeah, it's time to do something really different. And when we listened to what was coming in through us, we felt like we went to New York and New York almost received us with open arms. We quickly found a room in our friend's the apartment that he had. And then we were able to find our own apartment like a month later. Sarah found a job really quickly that she loved. And then I got the, like sort of like the next step of that, which was like, that it's time to write, but now you actually need to start writing. And that's when I like
Mm.
started the Young Pueblo stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, in a partnership, do you find that someone's intuition is leading at different times, or is it
Yeah, I think we take turns.
yeah.
Yeah, we take turns. Like, I think it's like a big practice in our relationship is just sharing leadership.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
we know our strengths, right? Like, um, I tend to lean towards the bigger picture and can like sort of see the arc of like, sort of like the big moves that we've made, like going from Boston to New York or from New York to Western Massachusetts. That was like my intuition coming in. But Sarah is more so like she can deal with like what's happening right now in a way
Mm.
where she's like, we need to get like these things done. And like, these are the things I'm going to do. These are the things you're going to do. And I'm like, okay,
Great.
boss, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, the sharing of leadership is so
Yeah.
powerful and it just builds that trust.
Hmm.
And it feels good to trust the other person to lead,
Yeah, because
you know?
life is immensely complicated and you can't always be on. You have to be able to
Yes.
lean on someone, whether that's an
Yes.
intimate partner or friends or a family group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to stick to the meditation for one moment
Sure.
with this silent piece. Um, I know you've done these retreats with Sarah. This is like a small question with a bigger, I think, lead in, but like, can you not talk to each other, but can you kind of meet each other during the retreat, embrace, look at
No.
each other? Nothing.
Nothing, not at
Wow.
all.
You don't see
No.
so you kind of keep away from people?
Yeah, so,
Wow.
for a lot of retreats, like, we also have, non-binary retreats, but for a lot of them, we, you went women and men will divide up
Yes.
into, like, men on this side of the meditation center, women on the other side. Every person has their own individual dormitory, especially at the center that I go to, in Western Mass, and you are meant to cultivate an atmosphere where you're totally by yourself. So, especially for the long courses like the 45-day course, you spend that whole day by yourself until about 6 p.m. 6 p.m., the group comes together in the main meditation hall. We'll sit together for an hour and then we'll listen to a discourse for an hour after
Okay.
that. But that'll be the only time when we're like really all supposed to be together. The rest of the time, we're all meditating either in the meditation hall or in our rooms or in these cells inside of a structure called a pagoda,
Mhm.
um, which is this like circular structure, um, where it creates like even like it's an even more conducive environment for meditation because it's really
Mm.
dark in there and you're like by yourself in this small cell. It's like it sort of imitates like cave conditions,
Yeah.
except you're like in a, you know, it's an indoor room, so it's not like uncomfortable like you would imagine a cave.
Mm.
Um, and so like at the 45 day, I would spend most of my time in the pagoda in one of the cells, and I just be in there for hours meditating. Yeah.
And what has your relationship with your ego changed throughout this
Yeah, it's not real.
practice? You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, it's not real. It's so funny, right? Because like you and I are talking right now. We're having a
Mhm.
conversation. This is true.
Yeah.
If I were to mention that, I'm not lying. But at the same time, there's another truth, a deeper truth, the
Yes.
ultimate truth. You and I are not real.
Mhm.
We are just like subatomic particles that are rapidly coming together in different combinations, quickly arising, quickly dissolving,
Yes.
and incredibly insubstantial and temporary.
Mhm.
And understanding that truth and being able to live within these two truths actually is very helpful for your mental health, because it allows you to sort of detach from this sort of very solid sense of identity that, like, I am this way. These are the traumas I've had. This is how I'll be my whole life. It's not like that at all. Identity is actually much more like a moving, changing river than
Mm.
something solid like a rock.
Why do we cling so hard to our identity?
I think attachment is like a really defensive survival measure. Like we're really trying to just like assess what's happening and hopefully things stay the same because it doesn't complicate what's happening. You know, it doesn't complicate things even
Yes.
further. So I think a lot of these things are like evolutionary survival mode
It
type
does feel
tactics.
primal at
It's
times,
super primal,
where it's
right?
like, yeah, the clinging to a
Yeah.
certain, yeah, thing has been I felt that so deeply, especially within relationship, because 'cause you're, I think, coming together
Hmm.
or, not existing but coming together, and, um, it's almost as if parts of you kind of have to die a little bit
Hmm.
in a beautiful way, but it's like the clinging to those parts I've experienced.
I think that's the really sort of beautiful and difficult part about relationships is that when you come together, like you're saying, you have to let go. You can't get everything
Mhm.
you want. There's no relationship where you can get every single thing that you crave. I think for a lot of relationships, you actually end up getting half of what you want, and the other half is your partner's joy from them getting what they want. And
Yeah.
right, and that doesn't mean like it's not always drastic, like it's 50-50. You're always going to get half of what you want. A lot of times your interests will overlap a lot. But there are times where, like, it's something is more meaningful to one person, and you're like, oh, yeah, like you really want to go to this art show. I don't want to go, but I love you. I'll go with you.
Mhm.
And you don't say it like that. You're not going to be like a jerk, but it's like, yeah, I could totally not go, but if this is important to you, I'm going to go with you. And then I'm going to see you so happy. And that actually activates the same happiness inside of me
Yes.
because I love you. So I want to see you happy.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they'll go to some, like, silly movie with you that you really wanna see, and they
Totally.
totally could care less,
Yeah, it's like
right?
this transcendence of,
Yeah.
like, your own stuff in
Mhm.
relationship that's so beautiful. It's
Yeah.
just, and it's like celebrating the other person in such a special way. Um, how do you I think part of my subconscious resistance to I'm very interested in this 10-day retreat. My subconscious little bit of resistance to it is kind of this fear around
Mhm.
the me on the other side and living in the world that we live in. Yeah, like, how do I reckon with the world that we live in on the other side of kind of seeing
Yeah.
your ego, seeing your being for what it really is?
I think it just makes things easier. I feel
Yeah.
like there's no other investment that I could make that could more so improve my life. Like every time I go back, I'll go back, I'll do one long course a year, then a few other sort of shorter courses a year. Um, just because I'm learning so much. Like you literally get an
Mm,
opportunity to study universal law. Like you're studying the laws of the universe within the framework of the body.
love.
And you understand like this pervasiveness of impermanence. But then when you leave the course and you go back to your everyday life, it just becomes so much easier to like connect with people, to have compassion towards them, to be able to not take it so seriously when someone says something silly to you or someone's trying to project their anger to you. And it just makes it easier to move with the ups and downs of life so that you're not like struggling against the river of change and you're just flowing with it more so.
Yes.
So it's pretty transformative. And I know that I've met a lot of people over the 10 years that I've been meditating, and they, they all have changed so dramatically, and they're all like really calm and fun people.
Mhm,
Yeah.
totally.
They're all
Yeah.
really funny too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think honestly, you find things more funny or you kinda see the lightness in things,
Yeah.
when you're not so much in your own head. Alright, I'm convinced.
Yeah. You got to let me know when you want to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I
Totally.
100% will. And do you recommend with your partner to do it at the same time and come together? What have you
You
found?
could. I found that it works differently for some couple. For some couples, it works better if like one partner goes first, so they can
Sure.
just totally have their own experience.
Yes.
Like when you go for your first 10-day course, you're there and you're silent for 9 days, and then on the 10th day you talk and you start extroverting so that you can like get the weirdness out because you've never been
Totally.
quiet for 9 days. um, but then you end up like meeting all these great people and then like you accidentally find a new best friend, and it just like it makes for beautiful connections, and
Mm,
it's easier to like make those new connections when you're not there with your partner, because
mm,
when you're there with your partner, then it's just like the two of you like debriefing hardcore, like how are
yes.
you. Oh, like what happened, like yeah.
Wow.
But both of them are beautiful experiences, so it depends on what you want.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious about your creative process. Pivot a little
Sure.
bit.
Yeah.
What does your process require? And what has it shown you about expressing?
That's such a good question. I think it really requires time, because I find that the best things come when I'm not like rushed for time, or I'm not like constantly emailing, or because like with being a writer, there also comes like the stuff that happens in the background, which is like you got to talk to your agent, you got to talk to your publisher, and your publisher has like marketing team,
Mhm.
like media team, and like this team and that. And they're all trying to help you with the project that you're doing, but it quickly becomes like a lot of emailing and like a
Yeah.
lot of phone calls and a lot of meetings. Or I also started a venture capital company called Wisdom Ventures, myself, Jack Cornfield, and a few other great people from Silicon Valley. And that's been so much fun because
Wow.
we're really trying to help sort of create this like new generation of internet platforms that still provide the services that we all look for, but at the same time don't abuse people's minds in the background. So
Can you say more about that?
yeah, totally. It's called Wisdom Ventures, and you can find out more about it through wisdomventuresfund.com. Um, but it emerged from this need that we saw through that movie, The Social Dilemma, that was really popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, what's the solution, right? Like, how do we fix the internet?
Yeah.
And we realized that we actually need to intentionally invest in companies that design their products in a compassionate manner.
Mm.
Um, So that's really like the guiding principle is like how can we push forward compassion? So we try to find companies that are not only companies that are focused on well-being, but specifically make their product in a way that doesn't hurt the well-being of an individual that uses
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Um, are there particular can you give us like a good example of whether it is a specific company or an aspect of a company where it's really serving
Yeah.
in the most pure way?
Yeah, there are some examples. So like there's two that we've recently made investments in. One is called Peoplehood, which is a really interesting company
I used
where
to work for Julie.
cool,
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
So we want to see where this experiment goes. We're really curious because there aren't that many things in the human connection field. And at first, it's the idea seems so simple, but it's literally like trying to help people learn how to communicate better and to help people like express vulnerability in a manner that is much more readily available than just like in these
Mhm.
like tiny moments a few times a year. But it's like, can I live a life where I'm just like more openly vulnerable? And
Yes.
um and I think it's a beautiful experiment. So we'll see how that one
I
goes.
think so too.
And there's another one called Ami that I'm really excited about that's based in Asia, where they're basically trying to have a network of therapists that are available to people that are working in real time.
Mm.
So when you're working, I know that there are some companies where you can like email a therapist while you're working, but this one you can just pick up the phone and like call a therapist, and you can
Wow.
like gripe about your boss or like like whatever it
Wow.
is, like you can talk to someone pretty immediately. So that feels like a really special slash necessary thing for people to
Powerful.
have access to.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can talk yourself out of like making an appointment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that whole process,
Yeah.
which isn't as complex, I think, as we make it,
Hmm.
but to be able to do that in the
Yeah.
moment when you're feeling that need for
Yeah.
support.
And it's also special because it's a service that your job provides for you. It's
Ooh,
the same way that they would like sometimes provide you a gym membership, right? They also like provide you this like network of therapists that
yes. That's
are,
what I'm talking
yeah.
about. I've never worked in the corporate world. However, I have a lot of friends that have, and I'm like, wait, why aren't even my fiance working in finance? I'm like, why aren't they investing in
Yeah.
a therapist for each
Yeah.
of you?
Yeah.
He goes to therapy outside, but I'm like, but
Mhm.
it would it's kinda I think of Billions where, the therapist that serves that office, and I'm like, it is so important
Yeah.
to have that support and resource and just ability to rip.
I know, and I think it's an interesting thing that's happening now too with this like great resignation with so many people leaving these like huge companies and either going off to take time off or working in smaller companies. Companies now they need to be able to offer more for people to even want to work, and like this is the type of support that you can give to an employee, which I think is
Yes.
not only like supports like the humane design of society, but it's just necessary.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel as though it's not offered or not like a natural inclination because I think there is kind of this desire to control, like I say that with love, like where you're in a company or office and like I feel as though it would be a fearful thing to think of your
Mhm.
employees perhaps talking to a therapist about their boss, about the structure of things, about whatever, and that
Yeah,
might be a
yeah.
little intimidating to those in power.
Mhm.
So, I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're, like, on the lookout for and why I was initially excited to get into this project was, I really hope that there's, like, the emergence of another sort of, like, wide scale social media network
Yes,
that
please.
just does not abuse your mind, that isn't trying to make you addicted, that isn't trying to, like, trick you into using it for longer and longer hours.
Mhm.
I feel like there are always like iterations of these social, like before Facebook there was like MySpace, and then there was like just a bunch of different like social medias before that. But we like I think it's time for something new that just like is not trying to hurt you in any way but still provides the connection and the fun that you want to have
Yes.
access to, but you don't want to be on it 9 hours a day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, can we peel back the curtain on your social media?
Sure.
Um, hygiene practice? Like, how do you approach
Yeah.
because, I mean, you are loved and saved and reposted by millions, and I feel, um yeah, I feel the resonance of your work is so pure, and I know you don't need me to tell you that, but it in a space where I feel that, like, there's so much coming at me, I always feel like a nice deep breath whenever I come across your content. How have you approached this
Mm.
world?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's one, I do all my social media myself.
Mhm.
I feel like I don't really plan posts or anything like that. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, what feels right for today to put up,
Mm.
and that's what I will go with. And that'll either be something new that I've just written or something that I wrote like 6 months ago or 7 months ago and just reshare it again. Um, but it's hard because especially in the beginning, like when we first spoke, like I remember back then, I would be like a lot more active in the comments or active in the DMs, but it's gotten to a point where like I'm just one person
Of
and
course.
I can't I can't even really engage because it's just like one, it's like too exhausting. And also like you do not know what you're gonna get, like in the
Yeah.
DMs and the comments. And a lot of the questions will be questions that I don't have the answer to, like I don't know if you should break up with your boyfriend. Like, I don't know, I don't know
Yeah.
your boyfriend. I don't know you. So for questions like that, you just need a lot more context and often like you're better off talking to a friend or a therapist or something like that.
Sure.
So I've taught myself to just accept the fact that the numbers have become rather like unimaginable, right? Like I can't like physically conceive of numbers that large.
Mhm.
So I just kind of let it go. Like I do my best to write things that are useful. I put them up there and hopefully they serve people well. But other than that, I can't do much else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The anonymity piece
Yeah.
is very cool to me.
Yeah. That's my favorite part too.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about the why behind that?
Yeah, I mean, Young Pueblo has a meaning, right? Like it definitely is a sort of guiding force, like the idea that humanity as a whole is maturing. And I
Mhm.
feel like a key part of humanity maturing is personal transformation. Like as more people heal themselves, the world will become less harmful.
Yes.
And it's going to take, you know, decades to really see that through. But that's really where my hope lies for the future of humanity, it's in the healing
Mhm.
of the individual. Um, but it gets really yeah, it just gets really tricky with social media. Like I just feel like I can only do so much with it. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way where I feel like my relationship with it is changing all the time, and I've I think like you, I don't plan, and I also just really try to feel into like what I want to express, whether it's today or, you know, if there's a week in between when I want to post and not post, it's not a huge deal. But I think to your point of the algorithm and you have to be on the app so much in order to have the views and engagement, it's a very interesting self-study for me when I'm affected by it and when I'm completely not, and
Hmm.
what's going on there. But yeah, I'm very hopeful and curious about like what's to come down the pipeline as far as social media, and just encouraging people to, yeah, express themselves and connect in a really authentic way.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take a lot of like honesty on our part from the users because
Yes.
it's like it's almost like too much. Like, so many billions of dollars have gone into research into like creating these platforms. And then you're like one individual that's just, and they talked about this in the social dilemma where it's like you versus like $1 billion like research company or research machine. And then you think you're gonna like beat it. Like you're not.
Totally.
It's totally gonna like imprint what your future desires will be and like sort of
Mhm.
lean you towards particular directions and tastes in music and in clothing and whatnot. um, but I think because we're becoming more hip to that and we're realizing that like, oh yeah, this is happening and I'm actually being like low key manipulated by the internet. I like, we need to then lean towards more compassionate design. And I feel like, we've seen this. in the clothing world where when
Mm,
people started learning more about like sweatshops and about like sort of like the
yes.
process of like how my clothes got to me, and people were like realizing how unjust it was, they were
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I don't want that. I would rather pay a little bit more to have clothing that I don't really feel bad wearing."
Yes.
So we've seen like a lot of options pop up in the clothing world where it's like, yeah, these are like sustainably made clothes and people are treated well on the way to you, for the clothes to get to you. So I think that same type of energy will be able to bring that to tech, because now that people are just learning, like, this is how it affects you, people will start opting towards, like, I want the option that's actually going to treat me well.
Yeah. People have power,
Oh,
together we
totally.
do. Because
Totally.
when you initially say that, I'm like, but Instagram, Facebook, they're giants. TikToks, they're giants. Like,
Yeah, they're giant.
how?
Empires fall, though. Empires
Exactly.
fall all the time. And yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, that gives me hope. I want to talk about lighter.
yeah, sure.
I'm so excited for you. This is an incredible piece of work. What inspired this book?
The start of everything. I feel
Yeah.
like when I started writing, um, I knew that I wanted to create a book that just had everything, that had everything that I personally thought was important about healing yourself, about personal transformation. Um, I find that like this is the type of book that specifically will help you sort of understand the different thresholds that you're moving through as you're going deeper into healing work. You know, like it's not the type of book that's like this is exactly how you heal and this is step 1 to heal.
Yeah.
It's not like that. And honestly, I'm not like a fan of those um methods because I find that each individual has very different emotional history, they have very different conditioning that they've sort of developed over time, so that means that different people are going to require different healing tools. So,
Mhm.
like for you, you know, you may try therapy. I like to meditate. That's fine. But as you start growing, there are some similarities that you'll find in terms of like how you deal with your relationships, how your self awareness starts developing, how you start positive habit building, or how you start developing your emotional maturity. And that's what this book sort of comes in. And it's talking about these commonalities and just more deeply expressing like, you know, what should your relationship to change be like, how should you be showing up in your relationship. And so it's not like a prescriptive book, but it's more a book that's meant for you to reflect really deeply.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I love. I think, especially in the world of, you know, we're in the time that we're in where social media is so prevalent. We're learning so much on social media
Hmm.
and taking so much in. Sometimes I forget how I feel
Yeah.
and I forget what's true for me and not necessarily true for me in other ways.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted to talk about your relationship with the past because I find that in healing, sometimes there is this attachment I have to the past in trying to heal something. And then I've also had experiences where I've simply let it go and I've had a much like more smooth experience. However, sometimes I feel like letting go so easily of the past, then I don't know, it's like I forget what made me.
Yeah.
So how do you
Yeah.
reckon with
Yeah.
that?
I love that. Those are all really good points. I found over the years where, you know, I've been taking my personal journey seriously, that a lot of healing actually happens by accepting the present moment. Like
Mhm.
specifically, a lot of the healing of the past happens by
Mm.
accepting the present moment.
Yes.
So, a lot of healing to me, it doesn't necessarily need to be imaginative. You don't need to like reimagine your traumas. You don't need to
Yeah.
like put yourself back in this like sort of difficult, ugly space that you were like, you know, trying to survive in the first place. I think what it really comes down to is like, can you be aware of yourself when you're moving through different tumultuous emotions and being able to be there with yourself and just accept where you are, and also using the techniques that you have, applying them, especially in those difficult moments, makes for a lot of that healing of the past. And you'll find that over time, um, the past itself won't feel like this heavy baggage. It'll just
Mm.
feel like lessons, you know, where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this happened, but now I know what to do so that this doesn't happen to me again, or it doesn't happen to my child, or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's powerful to just understand that connection between your present and your past. Because if you
Mhm.
really want to heal that past, you need to embrace your present.
Mhm. Yeah, I found like so much of um in the past when I've resisted what's for like here for me in the present moment, it's almost felt like it wasn't mine, like a little bit ancestral, or I don't know, it was like a weird feeling that I really couldn't identify
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
It was almost like this resistance to joy, resistance to um, the gifts, that were
Mhm.
right in front of me. And I think it can be a lot of things. Ancestral, it can be, yeah, a lot of things. Have you ever felt that resistance to what is good?
Totally. Um, and even specifically to what you're saying, like the ancestral point, like I remember the first few meditation courses that I did, I had this really distinct feeling of just like horror
Mm,
from it's like I'm primarily indigenous from South America. Like I was born in Ecuador,
mhm.
and like my people historically went through horrible things
Mm,
um, with like the Spanish coming to South America and just the genocide that happened there. Um, it's horrendous to even think
mhm.
about. But I remember feeling that horror like in my blood, and I was like, "What is this? This is so strange." Um, but I think it's just something that's, like, been encoded, from, like, the
Yeah.
people who did survive, and that helped me be here today, like, my family members, yeah, we all survived this, like, terrible thing that happened, but, it was strange. It's something that, like, I can't quite put my finger on, but it felt real, and, will I ever know for 100% certain, like, if that was really, what I was feeling? Like, maybe not, but it did sort of leave its mark, and it did feel really connected to the past, and,
Yeah.
but similarly, that same feeling doesn't really come up anymore. It's,
Mm,
like, I think the thing about healing is that it does make you lighter, like,
yeah.
mentally lighter, and like we were mentioning before, like you can let a lot go, and trauma points actually then turn into like lessons.
Mhm.
And you can, just like have a much wider sort of range of possibilities in terms of how you can act skillfully when challenges appear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the surrender process has been one that I like have practiced recently with the wedding planning in such a short period of time where
Yeah.
I'm like, you know,
I feel so much compassion for you in terms of the wedding planning because like it's hard. Like, I mean, we got married 7 years ago, but I remember that time really distinctly, and it is
yes.
hard.
What did it bring up for you?
A lot of insecurity because everyone was coming
Yeah.
together. Our families were gonna like really spend a
Meet
lot of
and
time
spend,
together,
yes.
and then not only our families, but we like invited like a bunch of friends from college, and I'm like, oh, are my friends too crazy? Like, what's gonna happen? Like,
Totally. It's like the management of people's experience and
yeah,
expectations,
yeah,
because 'cause I'm someone
exactly.
that loves to do that.
Yeah,
But I've been trying to embody this archetype of, like, if I'm really having I and my partner having a really great time and creating this experience from our hearts, that I trust that everyone will have the experience they're meant to have,
yeah, yeah.
because I can get really wrapped up in, like, "Oh god, is the music gonna, like, make my dad feel uncomfortable?"
Right,
Or
right, right, right.
you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's been such a practice, and also, not getting too caught up in the how of
yeah,
things,
yeah.
um, because I think just in general in life, we can get really we can stop because we're too overwhelmed by the how. We
Yeah.
have the vision, we have the desire,
Mhm.
but the how's like, "Well, I've never done it," or "I don't know that, I don't have connections," or "I don't know the step-by-step process," but I've found that, with prayer and intention, it's
Yeah.
been kind of like a little magic trick. It's
Yeah.
like all of a
Yeah.
sudden the people show up, the opportunity or the answer,
Mhm.
whatever it is, it's
Mhm.
been so profound. I'm curious, in your spiritual practice, we talked about meditation.
Mhm.
What else in your life would you consider like a spiritual practice?
For me, that's mainly it. I think,
Yeah.
like, because it is a high spiritual path, the one that I walk,
Mhm.
it's all sort of based around the Buddha's original teachings.
Mhm.
And I don't really think of myself as a Buddhist, but I take the Buddhist teaching like super seriously because
Beautiful.
I don't think anyone else in human history has understood the mind better than the Buddha.
Mhm.
Like, even to this day, like, therapists are wonderful, but the Buddha just like, I mean, it is incredible how much
Mm.
he understood, like, even down to like physics. Like, there were just so many aspects that when he emerged out of enlightenment, he was like, this, that, like, just
Yes.
letting you know about existence on so many different levels. Um, but yeah, it's funny because I feel like I went into meditation for healing, but I was then introduced to this liberation path, and like liberation in the
Mm.
sense of like the end of suffering, really trying to like fully come out of craving. And it's hard. Like, this is a path that's like, to get to that level of like Jesus and the Buddha, that's like a really long path, very difficult for human beings to do. But it's possible, like it is like an evolutionary high point that is available. I really believe that.
Mhm.
And I've met some people who are like super like, close to that level or on that level who I'm just like, wow, like this person is just oozing wisdom from every part of their being. And
Mm.
and there are always people that, are not on Instagram. They're not like they don't have books or anything like
Say it.
that.
Say it.
And I love them. I'm glad that they're just like living these really
Yes.
normal lives and like serving in these like, smaller, not smaller capacities, but in quieter capacities.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, like that's what I felt like it was the crux of this book was like for me, like I don't feel like I'm not enlightened in any way. Like
Mhm.
I haven't gotten there and I don't know if I'll ever get there in this life. Um, but I do feel lighter, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel mentally lighter and I'm
Yeah.
really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'd love to close by talking about where you live now and the importance of,
Yeah.
you know, taking care of land, of being able to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
um, just really close to Mother Earth in that way. It's a desire I have, and I see that vision for very clearly. Um,
Yeah.
and what that's been like just for your mental health, your spirit, your body.
It's been amazing. It's been like a long, long-term goal, to be able to like have my own garden, to be able to
Mhm.
like go outside and be like in the woods and just be surrounded by nature. And it was August of 2020 when Sarah and I decided to no, sorry, it was June when we decided to get a house. So we started looking then, and we moved out in August of 2020. And it's been a beautiful 2 years of just
Mm.
like being out in, coming from New York City, it feels like you're out in the middle of nowhere. We live in
Yes.
such a small town. It has like 2,000 people, and it's just beautiful. Like everyone
Mm.
is so kind, so friendly, and
Do you like know people and see them all the time
yeah, we
kind of
do.
vibe?
We have friends because we live close to the meditation center that we always go to, and we have like a
Beautiful.
bunch of friends that like serve there and work there and whatnot. So we have a whole beautiful crew of people. Um, but it's funny, like one of the experiences of like going out there is like walks are like really popular. Like when
Mm.
you want to hang out with someone, you'll like go on a walk.
Totally.
And or you're like, you'll have people over for dinner too, but like that's like the
Love.
fastest way to hang out is like, oh, let's go for a walk. But then like as we're going for walks, like, if you even see a car driving by you, like people will wave to you like they're your best friend. And at
Oh.
first I was like super confused. I'm walking with Sarah and I'm like, what? I'm like, do we know this person? And she was like, "No." And then and it was funny. So I got used to like that new culture where like, I'll wave to the people like as I'm
Totally.
walking, or if I'm in a car, I'll wave to whomever. Um, but then I come back to visit and I'm in Brooklyn with my friends and I'm
Yeah.
like sitting on my friend's stoop and it was the morning and someone walks by me and I'm like, I put my hand up and like wave and the person looks at me like I'm losing my mind.
They're like, "Do I know
Yeah,
you?"
they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, right, I'm back in New York City."
That's the thing where yeah,
Yeah.
it's, sometimes I hear my spirit just being like, "You can smile and you can wave, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay," because I want to.
Yeah.
There's that part of, I think, all of us
Mhm.
that, reach out for that connection, whether literally or just yearn for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this city is, I mean, it's the best, and also it just kind of puts us in our own little bubbles, kind of
Mhm.
moving
Mhm.
around, and we feel like we're unable to just pop the bubble a little bit and be like, "Hey."
Yeah. Oh, can we go back to the wedding real quick?
Yes.
There was one thing I wanted that just keeps coming up, but one thing that was really helpful for us, and I don't know if you have it kind of set up for yourself, is like,
Yeah.
do you have a person who's going to be like your water and food person? Because like your wedding day, you're going to be so popular, and
Yes.
everyone's going to want to take pictures with you, and people will literally be waiting in a line to get their
Oh my
chance
god, I'm so
to
glad you're
talk to
saying
you
this.
for 3 minutes. So, like, you
Totally.
can spend hours not drinking water, and,
Yes.
like, you don't wanna be, like, woozy at the end of the night because you haven't consumed
This
you
isn't, yeah.
know?
I'm gonna have my electrolyte, I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to have, like, a big
because Sarah
quart.
Sarah both Sarah and I, we had friends who were like, they would just put water in our face and
Wow.
then drink it real fast, and then you keep, like, saying hi and, all
Okay,
that
this is
stuff.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have, like, a moment after the ceremony to go off and, like, have a few bites of things just
Yeah,
so we can
okay,
fill our
good.
bellies a tiny
Yeah,
bit. But the water thing is so important because I'm someone who will forget to
yeah.
drink water. Um, but yeah, you're so right. See, Sean's the type of person that, like, I'm like, "Yeah, let me do a little tour," and he's
Yeah.
like, "I don't know, if you get to talk to me, awesome, like, if we don't, all good, hope you're having a good time," you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I actually learn a lot from him as
Yeah.
far as, the people-pleasing thing, but that's great advice. Any other wedding advice I'm open to, so let me know. But yeah, I'm really excited and just so inspiring, 7 years celebrating, that's
Yeah,
really
thank
profound to
you.
me.
Thank you. Yeah, it's yeah, like again, I just feel like so fortunate to be with someone who's like so loving, so beautiful, so intelligent, and also like one of the best meditators in the world. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, so, so cool. Well, I love always talking to you. And
Yeah.
I'm so inspired by just, yeah, your commitment to what's meant to come through you, whether it's through a
Mm,
book or through your posts on Instagram, the way you serve in your retreats. It's really, really profound. So
thank you so
it
much.
inspires me to not limit myself in the way that I express in this life. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Likewise. Thank you so much. And this was such a nourishing moment. I'm always wishing you the best.
Thank you so much, Diego. Again, Diego of Young Pueblo. That's YUNG_PUEBLO. And the book is Lighter.
So Young Pueblo is this idea of like the young person, young human being, where like as a humanity, we are very young. When I think about his work, how it's serving kind of this young humanity, it's very sweet. It's very, very sweet. His new book is Lighter. Lighter, let go of the past, connect with the present, and expand the future. The best bedside table book right now. Go grab it. And thank you to our sponsors for this episode. We really appreciate all the brands that we work with and we vet them so that you out there don't have to yourselves. We have discount codes in our show notes and on almost30.com. Thank you for listening to Almost 30. You guys rock.
We love you
We love you.
so much. Almost30.com, Almost 30 Podcast on TikTok, Almost 30 Podcast on Instagram. We have courses and programs that we're really excited about on our website. And we thank you for being in our lives.
See you on the next one.
See you soon.
Bye.